talk about your book, Raods To Manhood.
Yes.
And the fact that it's now in reprint. I don't know how many reprints you've done, but you were telling me that night, we were just talking very briefly, about the fact that you changed some things from the original version of the book.
Right.
But before we talk about that, let's kind of remind people, because it has been 4 years since you were here initially, about a little bit about the book and a little bit about Frank Chase and what led you to write this book.
Well, I told you back in the beginning when I first came on your show that I had went through a divorce experience. And it prompted me to really start investigating the emotions of men. And I think at that time I was at an emotional state where I was pretty messed up, and I didn't know what to do. I started praying and asking God what to do. And I'm sitting on the side of my bed, and he says, I want you to write a book about manhood. And I'm looking and questioning like Moses.
Like me.
You want me to do what? And he said, I want you to write a book about manhood. And so at the beginning, I started writing down on paper all my thoughts, started interviewing men, just doing all of the interviews and reading other material about the process of this phenomenon called manhood. And lo and behold, it came up with the title False Roads to Manhood at the beginning and the subtitle Breaking Free from the False Traditions of Men. And published it, took 7 years.
Let's talk about labor of love.
Well, yeah, it was a labor of love. I have to really thank my wife for that, being involved in that labor of love, and still involved with it. And so we did it, and we came on the show at that time, and we talked about the issues of manhood, the emotions of men, and I think we mentioned a little bit about the impact it was having on women at that time. And so that's how it actually all started at the time when we came on the show the first time.
Okay. Back up just a little bit before we start talking about this new version, and we will show the book because we want people obviously to be able to get your copy of the kind of the reprint and the revised version of False Roads to Manhood. But you were talking about the fact that it took you a process and took you basically 7 years from the point that you got this message that, you know, this is something you need to do, to the point that the first book was finished. During that 7 years, did you ever get to the point where you're like, okay, I'm at a standstill, I can't do this? And if you did, what encouraged you to move on? Well,
at many stages in the process of writing, I quit pretty much several times in the process because I was drawing on emotions that really I didn't want to deal with.
You know, and a lot of people say that, and I know I said in the opening that, you know, we've go through this phase where we have local authors on, and I love to do that because particularly when books have a real good message, because I'm an avid reader and I like to read all kinds of things, but when a book has a truly good message, and you can tell when someone is personally involved in the book, and I know a lot of people, when they write books, they say, well, it's a sort of kind of a therapy for me because it helps me kind of work through some emotions that, you know, I maybe didn't want to face, was afraid to face.
Right,
so
right.
Did you go through that process?
I went through that process the whole time. I think I had an experience one day when I was writing, and I went to sleep one night. And I dreamt about my father. Now, I have never dreamt about my father my entire life.
Wow.
And I dreamt about my father. And in the dream, I stood next to him, and he said, son, I love you. I woke up out of my dream crying, Father, Father. But it was as a result of the night before pouring through the pages and writing down the words about missing my father and listening to other men missing their father, which probably set off some emotional chain reactions in my own life about my own relationship with my own father, which caused the dream to take place. But I also believe that it also triggered in my heart pretty much that God really did love me and my father really did too. And I didn't really think so. But through the process and going back and thinking about the times that he was alive.
So you realized some things.
I realized some
at that
things.
Point, didn't
right.
Before.
And so sometimes when you're writing a book, it does pull out of you things that need to be gone, and
that you need to deal with.
And so you can move on with your life, because eventually you'll take it into somebody else's life if you don't get rid of it.